Assalamu alaikum. So I spoke to someone recently who was mentioning that she was having issues having an orgasm with her husband, and she remembers that she was severely sexually abused as a child. And I wanted to touch up on this when it comes to intimacy and abuse. Now, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I wanted to elaborate more on it. And a lot of you sisters have been coming to me now telling me that you've been having issues with your husband, as in that you're not sexually attracted to him, you're finding it difficult to have an orgasm, you're finding it difficult to actually perform a sexual act with him because you feel dirty inside. When you are sexually abused as a child, something is taken away from you. It's your innocence and your trust. So you associate, and especially when you're sexually abused as a child and you're told to keep it as a secret, you associate sex with something being dirty. Now, what happens with sexual abuse victims is that they can go two ways. They can either become hypersexual, where they are addicted to pornography and masturbating, or they have to be in control of every single sexual experience that they have. Okay? So how does this affect your marriage? When you're married, you need to be able to be intimate, emotionally first. You need to have an emotional connection with your husband before you actually have intercourse with him. Now, the problem is when you're sexually abused, there's like a part of you that remains hidden in darkness. It's a part of you that always has this shame and this guilt around what happened to you because you believe it's your fault. Now, when you have that emotional blockage, it's so hard to trust your partner, to trust your husband with your body. Because a part of you feels like, if only I had spoken up about it, if only I had told someone about it, maybe it wouldn't have happened to me. So that constantly plays in your head, and you blame yourself for what happened to you as a child. Now, this affects your marriage, because the whole point of a marriage is that you're supposed to be able to be intimate before you have intercourse, in the sense that you're supposed to be open and honest with your husband. And if you can't do that because you feel ashamed, then that affects intimacy, it affects your intercourse, it affects your sex life, it affects you having an orgasm. And another thing I find with women is that they find it difficult when they get their sexual needs fulfilled in a marriage. They no longer have that emotional connection, because intimacy in a holistic sense is emotional, physical, spiritual, right? It has three components to it. It's not just physical. There's an emotional connection to it, and there's a spiritual connection to it as well, right? So when you are sexually abused as a child, when your physical side has been fulfilled, you can't connect emotionally, because emotionally you're thinking, this is dirty, sex is dirty, it's something that's shameful, because as a child you associated sex with what happened to you. Now, what's the solution to this? Although people say that there's no solution, I don't believe that, because when I healed my own sexual abuse, it was so liberating. And the way to do it is by healing the child within. Now, I love doing this work. I love healing the child within and reparenting yourself. Because when you're abused as a child, that innocence is taken away from you. Your creativity is taken away from you. Your imagination is taken away from you. And you're made to feel dirty. The key is changing the meanings that you've attached to sex. And when you heal that child within and you get your power back, you get your power back from that perpetrator. You let that perpetrator know that you are taking your power back, and you're cutting the cords between you and that perpetrator, you and that person who did that to you. That I don't call them a person, I call them a disgusting whatever. But in my sessions, I get you to take your power back. And that alone is so powerful. That alone, like cutting the cord, taking your power back, getting the pieces of yourself back, is so powerful for my clients. And obviously, healing is a lifelong journey. You are going to get triggered. what I find with my clients is that those who have been sexually abused, they get triggered by touch, or if they're touched in a certain place. Like, if, for example, for me, mine was tickling. I didn't like to be tickled. And even my son, like, if he tickled me, I would get so agitated, so angry, so annoyed, because before the abuse happened, I would get tickled. So I associated play with something that was dirty. Do you see how your mind recreates and attaches different meanings to certain events? In my mind, playing was bad, right? Because before after, like during the playtime, that would happen. I would be abused. I'd be molested. I'd be touched in places I didn't want to be touched. But just changing the meanings that attach to play and to being innocent, and reliving my childhood within myself, is really helped me get over whatever happened to me as a child. Now, this has taken me like 7-8 years to heal, but I healed quicker with rapid transformational therapy. I've gone through cognitive behavior therapy, I've been through neuro-linguistic programming, I went through all of it. But rapid transformational therapy literally rewired my subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind is where the events play. Your subconscious mind is where the memories are. So if you don't change the meanings that you attach to those memories on a subconscious level, you will constantly recreate patterns. And this is why women who are sexually abused as children, they are more likely to be re-victimized when they're older, in the sense that they're more likely to fall for toxic men, they're more likely to fall into an abusive relationship, because they're so familiar with abuse. As much as ironic and as counterintuitive it sounds, when a woman is sexually abused as a child, she goes on to seek abusive situations because she's familiar with it. And remember, your mind is here to keep you safe. And if your mind is familiar with abuse, it will keep you in that cycle until you break it. This is why when your husband, sends you love notes or sends you a loving text or gives you a hug, you feel icky. You're like, ew, you're too nice. Like, you don't like nice guys, you like bad guys. Why? Because you were abused as a child. You had a traumatic experience in your childhood, and you have equated that to love. Love is not painful. I promise you, love is not painful. It's challenging, but it's not painful. Love is supposed to make you free. It's supposed to help you express yourself. It's supposed to help you step into your feminine energy. But when you're abused as a child, you're always surviving. We're not here to just survive, guys. We're here to thrive. But the problem is that when you're sexually abused as a child, or when you're molested, you're constantly surviving. Your defense mechanisms are always up. You're constantly looking for a way to protect yourself, because when you were a kid, you didn't have the vocabulary to say to people that something is happening to you, or you were too afraid that that person would hurt you if you told someone. So the key is healing the child within and reparenting yourself. And when you reparent yourself and you take that little girl home with you, when you take her home with you and you say to her, I love you, I'm becoming the loving parent to you now, that changes the game. That literally changes your whole perception of your childhood. Like, I've done the work, I've seen it in my own life, I've seen it in my business, and I find so many successful women, they come to me, they're killing it in the business space, but they literally have no sex life. And when I dig deeper, I find that they had some traumatic experience in their childhood. And this is not uncommon. This is common across the board. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're in the middle, whether you're educated, whether you're uneducated, it doesn't change. It doesn't stop. The abuse doesn't stop according to where you are in life. As a child, when your innocence is taken away from you, you carry that blueprint that I'm not good enough. No matter what I do, because that happened to me, I will always be not good enough. I will always be unlovable because that happened to me. You're carrying the shame, you're carrying the guilt, you're carrying the regret. That's not yours to carry, girl. That is not yours to carry. It's not your fault that happened to you. It's not you who caused that. It's not because you were dressed a certain way. It's not because you were a fair baby. It's not because you had red hair. It's not because you didn't cover yourself up enough. It has nothing to do with you. It's because the person who did it to you had a perverted mind. And they did not see you as a child, but they saw you as someone that they can abuse, and someone that they can use, and someone that they can take advantage of. And because of that, they molested you, they touched you, because they were perverted in their mind. That is not your fault. You couldn't have stopped that, because as a child, you don't know what's going on with you. They probably offered you some sweets. They probably offered you some food. They probably bought you some nice stuff before they did it to you. So now you've associated food, clothes, material stuff to this. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to heal. It's your responsibility to change the way you think about yourself. That's your responsibility. And there's so many tools out there. There's so many tools out there to reprogram your mind, reprogram your subconscious mind. But for me personally, rapid transformational therapy literally changed the game for me. Literally last year, when I had my first session with Marissa Peer, instantly I saw massive changes, massive improvements in my life. I used to have OCD. I used to have social anxiety. Guys, I can't explain to you. I could never make a video. If you go back to my videos at the beginning, you will see how much of a difference there has been. I could not make a video. I used to stutter. I'd be shaking. I'd probably sit there for 6 hours just trying to get one video right. I had perfectionism. All this because I was sexually abused as a child and because I was bullied. But the sexual abuse was a big one. I always felt that I was the problem, that there's something wrong with me, that I was the cause of it. Because the person that did it to me was someone that was supposed to be trusted with me. He was a trusted figure. So I carried that shame and I carried the guilt. And the worst thing is, I was so afraid of people to know. I was so afraid of people to find out that happened to me. And they'll reject me or say that it was my fault. You're so disgusting. How can you... Like, all these thoughts run through my mind. But that was not my burden to carry. It's not your burden to carry either. You have to give that burden back to the person who did it to you. And with rapid transformational therapy, you can do that. So ladies, I'm offering one-on-one coaching sessions, one-on-one rapid transformational therapy sessions for all of you who have messaged me and DM'd me regarding not being able to have intimacy with your husband, being sexually abused as a child. This is like my line of work. I love healing the child within. I love helping you to overcome the pain and the trauma that you experience at such a young age. So inshallah, send me a DM and let's get this started. Let's get your healing process started, inshallah. Feel free to share my video. Feel free to comment below on what you benefited, and I'll speak to you soon. Assalamu alaikum.